And while digital advances have made storytelling easier and more accessible, those same advances can also remove the human factor. Here to talk about the relevance of that human factor in digital communications, please welcome Peter Kafka, J.J. Abrams, and Andrew Jarecki.
How is that changing the way you're making the stuff you're making? You just made 10 Cloverfield Lane. What sort of stuff did you have access to? How did that change the process for you compared to 10 years ago?
Well, in the case of Bad Robot, we've been using all sorts of tools, whatever is available to us and whatever is necessary. In the case of The Force Awakens, we had a movie that we were in post on, and we realized we needed to add some moments, change some scenes, rewrite some stuff, and actually put in moments of, just to be specific with this, the theme of this talk, humanity into some sequences that were special effects heavy and maybe sort of off point. And we ended up doing a lot of that at Bad Robot, literally in our little stage that we have. We ended up shooting nearly 10 minutes of the movie in total at Bad Robot. And it was stuff that we could never have done had the technology not existed. The same is true with 10 Cloverfield Lane. We ended up shooting quite a bit of that, did all the visual effects in-house, did the entire mix, sound effects in-house. And so it's an incredible thing to think that you used to need the giant stages, the giant lights, the giant cameras. You used to need all the equipment and get the permission to use it, and it used to cost an arm and a leg. And now there's a kind of consumer and prosumer technology has allowed major motion pictures released by major studios to be made in a way that is either completely old school, completely new school, or kind of hybrid. In the case of both these movies, though, of course, 10 Cloverfield Lane is infinitely smaller, they were both kind of hybrids, which was very exciting to see and gave the whole thing a kind of homespun feeling.
And you made a point of saying, look, we're not going to overdo it with digital. We want this to deliberately sort of have a tactile sort of feel to Star Wars. We want it to not look like it was generated out of a computer, even though much of it is generated out of a computer.
Well, the thing was, you do a Star Wars movie, you're never going to get away from the fact that an incredible amount is going to be done in CG, but it was important to us as much as possible that we had an analog feel. We shot the movie on film. We had, like, BB-8 was a puppeteer character. He was actually in all the scenes physically. We would use CG more often than not to remove a puppeteer, a rig, legs of performers sticking out of the bottom of creatures, things like that. But the idea was, in the case of Star Wars, to both create a sense of analog authenticity visually when it wasn't, and most importantly to make sure that the humanity of the characters wasn't getting lost wherever possible. And of course, that was just our ambition. It's up to every viewer to decide if it worked, but that was the idea, was to try and make sure the movie felt as human and as emotional as possible. What's so wild is working on the show, despite some of these characters being robots. Of course, they're anthropomorphized, they're being played by humans. There's a crazy thing that happens where you start to realize it doesn't matter. And you care and you feel for these characters because they're characters. And it just makes me feel like all these things we're hearing about, not just robotics, but of course AI, you realize, oh, that's the inevitability. That it becomes irrelevant what is the physical makeup of a being. If they're a being and they have a sense of consciousness, it's all over. But it's something that seemed to be sort of in a Venn diagram of what we're talking about today.